everyone, this is NJ, and it's day 8. So we're going to finish up chapter 3 of Cole and His Stocking. Why don't we all take a seat? Said Roger. Bryn liked that idea. She felt so caught off guard. Her head was spinning. He'd looked surprised, but he had to have known who she was. Did he recognize her in the bar and, knowing who she was, lied about his name? Another thought hit her. What if he'd targeted her? What if his plan had been to seduce her all along, to discredit her? She felt her face flame when it occurred to her that if he had known who she was, perhaps he wouldn't have told the other men at the table he'd fucked her, as he put it, 6 ways to Sunday. He could have told them it was her and outed her right then. She was very confused. Anthony was in just as much shock. He'd been prepared for an uptight Yankee bitch, not someone like Bryn. She'd been funny and smart and so down to earth when they talked. Had it all been an act? Maybe her plan had been to meet him, seduce him, and fuck him so that he lost his bargaining power. For all he knew, she might even say that he forced himself on her. He shook his head at those thoughts. She hadn't seduced him. He was the one who bought her a drink. He'd invited her to his room. And from the look of shock on her face, she was even more surprised than he was. Slick! He heard his name and he looked up, clearly having been caught daydreaming. Sorry, lost in thought. Can you repeat that? I was just stating the numbers we had of female members and asked if you concurred. Is it less than 5% in any of the trades you gentlemen represent? Here we go with the numbers, Anthony thought. Yes, it's true that less than 5% of our members are female, but we don't discriminate against them. If they can do the job, they can have the job. The problem is, none apply. Don't you ever wonder why that is? Bryn asked. If it's such a good job, with such good pay and benefits, as you advertise, why is it that only males apply? Anthony wanted to shout that it was because women weren't strong enough, but that really only applied to his trade. He did wonder why there were hardly any female electricians or plumbers. He wasn't going to admit that, though. He did have another number that might impress them. I don't know why females don't apply, but I'm happy to say that nearly half the tile companies in the greater Charleston area are owned by females. Bryn let out some sort of snort. You've got to be kidding. You mean that the companies are owned by the wives of the actual tile setters, so that they can be considered a minority-owned company and have a better job getting a bid? That's just a female-owned company on paper. Those women don't and haven't ever set tile. Many of them have other full-time jobs. Damn, she was a firecracker, Anthony thought. So what is it you want us to do? Joe said, sitting up a bit. I can't change who owns the company, and I can't make women apply to become apprentices. What is it you're down here doing besides stirring up trouble? Despite his agreeing with what Joe had said, Anthony didn't like how he was talking to Bryn. He looked over at her, wondering if she'd shrunk back from Joe's loud voice. She hadn't. Just the opposite. It's funny you should ask. We have a proposal right here. Bryn handed folders to everyone at the table. Why don't we start by going over this? She said. Anthony had to admit that some of the ideas she had weren't that bad, but it wasn't him she had to convince. It was the members who would be funding her proposal, though most of what she was suggesting would be free. 3 hours later, they decided to take a break for lunch. Whenever Anthony reserved a room for meetings, he ordered an assortment of sandwiches. A short redhead walked into the room carrying the tray. She set it on the table and walked over to Anthony. Hey, Slick, she said, running her hand up his arm. I just need your signature on this. Sure thing, Carrie, he said, familiar with the waitress. Are you staying here tonight? She asked in a somewhat lowered voice, though everyone in the quiet room could hear her. Yep, Anthony said, looking uncomfortable. He knew what was coming next. Well, I get off in a few hours. What's your room number? I'll come by and we can hang out again. Bryn was watching from the corner of the room as the scene unfolded before her eyes. I, uh, I have plans, he said, but he was unsure if that was now true or not. Carrie just smiled. Maybe I can join you. Anthony turned red. Wow, it's not every day Slick Dupree blushes. Is that a yes? Carrie continued. She was persistent. Anthony had no clue if his date with Bryn was even on anymore. All morning she'd acted like they'd never met, and he had to wonder if that would continue after the meeting was over for the day. It's a no. Sorry, Anthony responded. He was unable to stop himself from glancing at Bryn, who was pretending to check messages on her phone. Must be someone special. I know how much you love little double lovin'. Yeah, sure, I don't still wish I was single, Joe said with a chuckle, to be a fly on the wall in the bedroom of Slick Dupree. Anthony just wished they'd all shut up. He wasn't that bad, was he? They made him sound as though he fucked a different woman every day. Sure, he'd enjoyed time with Carrie. She was hot and never wanted anything more than a quick fuck. On the other side of the room, Bryn was trying to keep from crying. How had she been so stupid? She couldn't figure out his game, though. If he'd done it to embarrass her, why hadn't he called her out in front of everyone? She'd convinced herself that it had to be a setup. The cute little redhead had confirmed that. Bryn felt that Carrie was much prettier and had a better body than she did. There was no reason Anthony, better yet Slick, would pick her over that hot waitress unless he was up to something. So that's where we're ending because that's the end of chapter 3. So tomorrow we'll be starting chapter 4. And I hope you join me. And I hope that you're loving this. Tell your friends because, you know, the more people that are joining in, the way more fun it is. So this is NJ saying good night. See you tomorrow.